Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Brittany.
And this is NFGeeks. Alright, well, Britt, when I was doing the scholarchy discussion with Josh, which is something I really think about all the time, for real, we were talking about families and the issue in the Platonic Republic about how families would be viewed and why you wouldn't need families in the ideal situation. And you were here listening. And you had some comical faces on that issue. So I think that's a very NF moment because we all have issues with families in terms of our intuitiveness and also in terms of our hurt and brokenheartedness with families. I know I do. So let's talk about that because that was a good. I think this is a good leeway into a lot of things. So let's talk about what was your initial impression and why did you find it amusing? Let's hear about it.
I find the whole concept of family amusing.
Outside of the whole...
Yeah, just in general, I find it pretty amusing. I don't know why, I just always have. And it's an interesting concept because family tends to hurt you more than anybody else does.
Yeah, sure.
They just have the ability and the knowledge, I guess, to really hurt you on a deeper level than anything else.
Sure, and I think one of the issues, too, is that, you can, disconnect from a lover, divorce a husband or wife, but... your family, you can't escape. You know what I mean?
Well, you can. But...
Well, you can try, but they come back. You know what I mean? There's always some kind of thing. You know what I mean? All right. Can you speak to how that connected with you as an NF? Anything specific that you can relate to? Like, what was the main way that you got hurt from your family? Without dogging anybody specific.
No.
Unless you want to dog them specifically. I don't mind.
Just most of my childhood and my teenage years, it's like, I wasn't in a very good place with my family. I was pulled out of school when I was 13 to raise a kid that wasn't mine. And I was always very put down. And just, I don't want to say unappreciated, but it was just, growing up, I felt like family was there to bring you down. I felt like, because they know exactly...
Like oppress you.
Yeah, it's kind of just like to hold you down, to keep you where you are. Because it's like a whole hierarchy. And I always found it really repressive and really depressing and just how it was. And then when I turned 18, I moved away and everything about it. But,
what are the... yeah, boy, I know a lot of people who do that. They don't have to be NFs.
Yeah.
All right, how was it to be an NF specifically? Oh, wait, let me back up. Do you know the types, or generally do you think you know the types of your family? Were you dealing with SJs, SPs, and Ts, other NFs?
I believe my mother was an SP.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know which one?
Probably an ES, I don't know. I don't think she was an F. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. All right, how did that impact your NFness?
I've always been the type of person who's loved to be with people. I enjoy people for who they are. And I grew up with people who just liked manipulating others and taking advantage of others.
Jeez. And
it was always very, shocking to me. I'm like, why would you do that to another person? It was always very confusing. But, my mother, throughout my whole childhood, was more of a, what can I get from you? What can you do for me? Type person. And I was just like...
So mutual exchange.
Not mutual exchange, just what she could get from others.
Oh, no.
And I always found, I'm like, well, are you giving back at all to anybody?
And was she?
No. And it was very confusing to me as a child. I'm like, is that how things work?
Yeah. Well, the doctor who I have this relationship with, she defines people as she just said this the other day to me. She said, Mike, there's givers and there's takers. And givers give, and it's pretty consistent. Granted, there might be slight switches, but and she wasn't saying this to any particular type either. Like there's NF takers, there's SJ takers, there's it doesn't even matter. But there's givers and takers, and it sounds like to me you're talking about a taker. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
As a family?
Yes.
All right. So how do you think this wounded your NFness? I mean, this sounds almost wounded.
I don't know if it's wounded it, But I think I've become much more of a giver because of it. Because
In a good way or a pathological way?
I think I want to think it was a good way.
Which means it wasn't. Okay,
I
that's
know.
all right. It's totally dysfunctional pathology.
Yeah.
That's all right.
No. But I don't. I can just see myself as. I've always taken it as a what I don't want to be type thing. So I really don't know how it's affected it, if for the good or bad, but it was just there. It was just one of those things. It would just happened.
So you would just accept it.
Right. Yeah. But the whole idea of, because Josh was saying something about how can you feel the love and connection to somebody who's not your family, you didn't give birth to them or whatever. And I always was surrounded by people other than my family who treated me like family. So I always found like the idea of you don't need families interesting because I always felt that way.
Wow, so that's interesting because you and Josh are both ENFJs, but you see it from both sides. You see it from one side, he sees it from the other side.
Right.
So does that mean then you would agree with Plato that it's possible to have a society where the parents are not necessary if all the adults are appropriately loving the child and interacting with the child? Wow, that's great. Plato would be thrilled.
Yeah. And I think it would work.
Yeah.
It would work fine.
Well, sometimes I kind of go back and forth about Plato. Like, sometimes I think he's an NT, but sometimes I think really he's an NF. I think Socrates was an NT, and I think Aristotle was an NT. Yeah, they're definitely, those two are NTs, because they would just piss people off, and, all sorts of things. And it's very logical, everything they're doing. But NF, but Plato has sort of this idealistic thing going on, and with the art of these dialogues and things. I think he might be an NF. All right, but that's neither here nor there. All right. Now, have you had this experience with? Well, first of all, are there other immediate family members close to you, or not close to you, literally? But do you have other immediate family members that you interact with other than your mother?
Yes.
Okay. Brothers, sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you had these oppressive moments with them? What have those moments have been like? Would those moments stop you from thinking about family being beyond, anybody, or thwart that idea or anything like that?
See, my brother is still very young.
Okay.
So
Are you the oldest?
Yes.
Ah.
So they are still in the mindset of the family. It's just they act. That's where they get most of their feedback from, and that's how they act. So
what's the age difference?
11 years.
Between you and the youngest? The one that's beneath you.
Yeah.
And so the next one's 11, and then you
13.
have less. Okay. 13 years.
Yeah, 13 and 11.
Not meaning they're 11 years old. The oldest one is 11 years from you,
yes.
and then the youngest one is 13 years from you.
you.
Ah, that's interesting, because my sister was 8 years between us. That's less.
Mm-hmm.
But, when I was a kid, I thought my sister was just another adult in the family, because when you're really little, you associate age with height.
Yeah.
And she was the same height as everybody in the family, so I thought, well, she must be an adult too. Now, granted, she might have been, this is times when she was 15, 16. She really wasn't an adult, but I always saw her that way, and to this day, we don't see each other as peers.
Mm.
We talk as peers. So I'd like to, how do you feel about that? Do you sense that within your own thing?
I actually went and saw my brother last November, and I raised him, so I don't know how to be a sister to him. I turn on mom mode so quickly when I see him, and I feel so bad about it. It's like I get into wicked mom mode when I see him.
Wow.
It's bad.
Does he pick up on that?
Yeah, and he just laughs, but then he doesn't, so it's fine.
Okay, but it sounds like that's a good connection.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't sound like something dysfunctional.
Right.
He rails against you, and then you get disappointed and start crying.
No, I don't NF cry.
Right. So it doesn't seem, it seems different, but it seems correct.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting. Now let's talk about the people that were outside of your family. How did they treat your NF-ness or family to you?
I don't know if the family dynamic or the outside people really played much into my NFS or not. I think some of them accepted me more in the way I was thinking, because I thought very differently from my family. I've always have, and I think it was just they were more accepting of my viewing things differently than my family was. So they were a little more nourishing, I guess.
Hmm.
But it wasn't like something that helped form anything. So.
Okay, But you've kind of, it sounds like what you're saying is that you did feel that they plugged into your emotional needs.
Yeah.
Does that seem correct? Okay. What kind of family do you think you'll create going forward? What would be your ideal family?
I've always wondered that. Like if I were to
gonna
have,
be great.
if I were to have my own family, like how would it like manifest? And I don't know. I think I always worry about like if I have what it takes to make like or have like a functional family or family dynamic. And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I worry about it a lot.
Well, let me give you an answer then, a possible answer, but it seems to be the case, is that the interesting, that the phrase is that, you can choose your friends but not your family. And that phrase is sort of directed towards your childhood family. But I find that it's also true in the future about your own family then with children. Because I didn't necessarily choose Noah and I's relationship, and that's not meaning that there's anything wrong with it, I'm unhappy. But, for example, I always thought that I would have more children. I didn't know I would just have one son. I always thought I'd have a series of children. That hasn't happened, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I have all sorts of issues with that for another episode. I might cry. No, I'm not going to cry. But at the same time, though, I got this other family where it's really just Noah and me. The two of us together. So, and it's kind of like bros. He doesn't always see it that way. But, you know what I mean? It's just him and I. There's very little conflict, that actually goes on. We kind of exaggerate it when we talk about it on NFGeeks, but it's really not there. And, it's kind of nice and sweet. So it wasn't the family that I thought I was going to have. I also thought I'd be married, that happened. I also thought that too, but I'm not married. Well, I'm divorced, but I'm not married right now, and I only have one kid, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. But it's not a family I imagined. At all. Specifically having an SJ son. I certainly didn't imagine that happening. So how do you feel about that? Because it seems to fly in the face of your worry. Or not worry, but it sort of validates your worry.
See, I don't think I'd worry about something. I don't worry about... I think I just worry about bringing up a functional individual.
Well, you can just forget that.
Yeah, it's not
That's not going to happen. When I teach psychology, I always say that, basically... what Freud says, it's already too late. Like even when you get to therapy, it's too late, and it's too late to stop your creating neurosis in your children too. It's even too late on that level. And basically, what you can just hope to do is get the ego to cope.
But one thing I really don't believe is that you can't pick your family.
Oh, okay, that's great. Why do you say that? That's fascinating.
Because even as of right now, I don't have much family, but I've surrounded myself with people who really treat me as family, and I love them like they're my family, and I've chosen them all.
Oh wow! Oh, that's great.
So
wow, so that's great. And again, that sort of speaks to Platonic, that you choose people who actually fulfill your needs. And all of them sort of are doing it, even though they're not blood related.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So do you think Plato's right then?
I do, and well, then I have a messed up family dynamic. But it's like I've always voluntarily surrounded myself with people that complimented me. Like I felt better when I was with, or it was like a mutual. Feel good. I don't know.
Wow, that's great.
So.
That's interesting, because what that brings out in me is that really I haven't really done that to any extent. Part of it is I have a very cynical view. I admit that friends come and go, and that you can't really depend on them deeply. It doesn't mean you can't depend on them a little or have love for them, but friends come and go. People think friendships are forever. No, I haven't had that experience, and I don't believe that's true. And what's scary for me regarding family in light of that is really the only family I have is Noah. Because all my parents and the people who raised me, they're all dead. Because I was born late in life. My mother was like 38, 39. When my mother was my age, I was probably 3 years old. So they're all dead. Okay? And so I don't have any family above me. My sister lives in another state, so I don't really see her a lot. And so the only family I actually have in the whole city, the whole state that we live in, is Noah. I don't have any other family. That's a little scary to me in a way too, and because I wasn't able to choose that outside circle. Like you have. You've really been able to adapt and find a new family, Would it scare you if you had my situation?
I can definitely see it as from a blood perspective anyway. Well, like I have my father's in the state, but he doesn't really like me, so we don't communicate like we should. I have a grandfather that's here. It's the same situation, um, but when I think of it as strictly in a blood type manner, like family blood, I completely understand that loneliness and how horrible it is.
Sure.
And if
I was an NF alien in my family.
Mhm.
So.
And if I didn't have the people that I surrounded myself with, I don't know. It would be an absolutely horrifying thing to deal with.
Yeah.
Without a
And
doubt.
let me assure you that is what it is.
Yeah.
Because that's my life, so I understand that.
Yeah.
Perfectly. All right. We're out of time, so thank you, Britt. That was
Thank you.
awesome.